So what is going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel, back with another Q&A where we take your questions from the comment section below to do with the zombie storyline, Easter eggs and much more, and we answer them. So as always, if you enjoyed today's video, you know what to do, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest content, but without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. So the first question of today from Brian Gonzalez says, what if Richtofen faked his death? And ever since we had the Blood of the Dead ending, I've seen a load of comments or questions, a lot of people saying things similar to this, also people making videos on it, basically saying, was this even the right Richtofen that died in Blood of the Dead? Some people have said it is, some people have said it isn't, and this all came from Richtofen's scar. Now the reason I didn't make a video on this is because, well, I believe he did die. What we saw happened. This whole theory around the scar I don't think means anything because it's been an anomaly ever since we were introduced to Primus Richtofen back in Origins. Richtofen's scar on his face hasn't been consistent. For example, in Origins, in that intro cutscene, Richtofen clearly has the scar on his face. Our next map that we see him in, well, apart from Shadows of Evil, is the Giant. In the Giant, as Primus Richtofen walks out of the teleporter to kill his ultimate self, you will notice on Primus Richtofen's face, the scar is no longer there. Richtofen doesn't have the scar in the Giant, but then we go to our next map, which is Drache, in which, by the way, they travel straight there. They get a giant robot from the Giant facility and take it to Drache, and then all of a sudden you notice in Richtofen has the scar on his face again.
I fucking hope so.
This subject will one day wreak havoc across the entire universe. He cannot be allowed to live.
This wasn't how it was supposed to go. We were supposed to secure the package and be in and out clean. Instead, the whole thing's been one disaster after another. I should never have trusted you, Richtofen. Never!
You should trust me, Dempsey. You all should.
So we've gone from Origins, where he has the scar, to the Giant, where he doesn't have the scar, and then straight to Drache, where he has the scar again. That was the first time we saw something like this, yet it was never brought up. I don't think anyone really noticed it, but as you've seen, it's been for a long time a blip in our zombie storyline, something that hasn't really been consistent. And then we see the same thing happen again in Blood of the Dead, where again Richtofen doesn't have the scar on his face. He doesn't have it in the intro cutscene, and he also doesn't have it in the ending cutscene as well. Yet in the map before this, which in terms of the timeline would be Zetsubo no Shima, however it's in a different cycle, he does have the scar on his face. So he's gone from Zet to Blood, and all of a sudden the scar has gone missing. And like I said, there's been a ton of theories as to what's really happened. People have been saying, well, somewhere along the line has Richtofen switched himself. Is this the Richtofen that we've been playing with all of this time, or is it a different one? If you say that, then of course you've got to ask the same question for what we saw in the Giant as well. Obviously it is a strange thing. Like I said, there are clearly two different models for Richtofen, so I'm 50-50 on this. Either it could be a simple mistake by Treyarch, they could have used the wrong model of Richtofen for a couple of the maps, or it is intentional. Honestly, I'm like half and half. Really, I can't say, because it's just so strange. It could be nothing and Richtofen did indeed die in Blood of the Dead, or perhaps it is a different Richtofen, but you've then got to ask, well, what change does that really have on the storyline? But personally, I do believe he died in Blood of the Dead. Maybe later on the line we'll find out different. Obviously we see another version of Richtofen in the classified ending, so there's plenty versions of him out there, or at least 2 or 3, and I've seen a lot of people saying that, but honestly I don't think we can say for sure that this was the right Richtofen or this wasn't the right Richtofen that died. For me, it's just too inconsistent. If it was the first time we saw it happen, then okay, but it isn't, so I'm just gonna leave it there. The next question from Reese says, is the Viking in 9 anyone of importance? Who is he and does he have a backstory? So yes, in 9, if you didn't know, there is an Easter egg to do with this Viking laying on a boat, in which you can get yourself some free perks. But that isn't what I'm interested in. If you want to know, it's a pretty simple Easter egg to do. However, you do need to be level 34 and have unlocked unlocked the raft fire. You just need to collect 3 parts around the map. They're really easy to find. One of them is a Viking helmet, the other one is a sword, and the other one is this little wooden cup thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but you put all 3 of them on this boat. You then throw the raft fire from a certain position onto this dead Viking, and you can get yourself, like I said, a free perk. There's plenty of tutorials on how to do it. However, as you said, is there a story behind this guy? Now, there is what I would say a kind of similar Easter egg to this in 9, which is the prisoner Easter egg. We know that has a backstory because there is a guy trapped behind the walls in 9, and his story is to do with the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus. It seemed like he had been killed and trapped behind the walls. That was an Easter egg, and then there's also this Easter egg where you can get yourself a free perk from this dead Viking. Now, what exactly is this, you may ask? Well, as Scarlet clearly tells us, it is a funeral barge for a true warrior. This is in the Odin temple. Odin, of course, is a part of Norse mythology, which was the Vikings, who was the god of all gods, and this resembles what the Vikings used to do to their dead, known as a Norse funeral. They would put their dead on a boat, they would set the boat alight, and then send it out to sea. And so that's clearly what happened here. We've got a dead warrior, as Scarlet says, on this boat, and when we throw the raft fire on it, the boat begins to burn, resembling a Viking funeral. So this could be just that. There could be no story behind it, and it's just here because, well, the Odin temple is to do with the Vikings, and this is a dead Viking that has had a funeral. However, I have seen some comments saying, well, this dead Viking's helmet looks very similar to the one that Thor would wear. Now, first off, I just want to say that yes, this is similar to the helmet that we see Thor wear in the Marvel movies. Similar, but not exactly the same. And it's actually just similar to the style of some Viking helmets in general. So that doesn't really say too much. I think the main thing you could say is, well, Thor, of course, was the son of Odin. This is in the Odin temple. Thor's hammer is also a big part of 9. So I believe that is where all of the theories come from. But I also think if there was a bigger part to this, if this was supposed to be some god, which personally I don't think they would have had a funeral like this. And also this Viking has a sword as well. Like we said, we know Thor's hammer is his weapon. Nevertheless though, it is cool, and it is part of a small Easter egg in the game in which you can get yourself a free perk. I just think it's referencing Viking funerals, since this whole section is themed around Norse mythology and the Vikings. And the final question from Karoom Rock says, I think that for the final battle between our characters will be our crew teaming up with the Shadowman to kill Dr. Monty in favour of the Shadowman, where the Shadowman acts as Monty by giving us wall buys, the box and stuff like that. I feel that the Shadowman could promise our crew a safe place, like their own universe, and convince them to help him kill Dr. Monty. So basically what you're saying is, now that we've discovered that Dr. Monty isn't who he said he was, our characters have discovered that he's evil and that he's been trying to keep them in this loop. You're saying, well, just like before how they teamed up with Dr. Monty, they went along with his plan on what to do to create a perfect universe and take down the Shadowman. Well, now that we've discovered Monty's actually evil, what if our premise crew help the Shadowman instead to take down Dr. Monty? Because we know that in our zombie storyline, it is Dr. Monty who has been giving us the perk machines, the wall buys, the mystery box, but if Dr. Monty's plan has broken down, if our premise crew now know that he's evil and we're going to kill Dr. Monty, surely he's no longer going to help us out, surely he's no longer going to give us the perk machines, the mystery box or the wall buys. And if that's the case, whatever our next map is, how are we going to get weapons, perks and stuff like that? If Dr. Monty's no longer helping us out, which it wouldn't make sense if we're trying to kill him, what way from now on are we gonna get our guns, mystery box, perks, power-ups and stuff like that? And you're saying, well, what if we actually team up with the Shadowman? He then gives this stuff to us, because we don't exactly know the Shadowman's full potential. We don't know 100% what powers he has. Maybe he can give us weapons and stuff like that, we don't know. But what if we teamed up with him to take down Monty? He gives us the weapons, the box and stuff like that to help do that, and we then teamed up with him instead. Or maybe at the end, when we've taken down Monty, we then took down the Shadowman. We don't know. For me, that sounds a little bit far-fetched. However, it is definitely something to think about. How are we going to get all of our equipment that we need now that I presume Dr. Monty wouldn't help us out? Why is he going to help our characters to kill him It doesn't make sense. But could this also explain our new perk system in BO4? Because obviously in Blood of the Dead, we no longer have the OG perks, we now have these weird soda machines that give us different perks. We no longer have the Group 935 perks. So could that be our first sign that Dr. Monty's no longer helping? I mean, we still have the mystery box. So anyway guys, that is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do. Drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, goodbye.